The shape of every knife in your drawer isn't just about looks, it's a response to a war, a religious ban, or an industrial disaster you've never heard of. 8 knives, 8 stories.
Chef's knife. Late 19th century. Cities are growing. Restaurants are serving not dozens, but hundreds of people every evening. Cooks need to slice through tons of vegetables and meat, fast, without stopping, shift after shift. A straight-bladed knife works like a hatchet. Lift, strike, lift again. By the 100th cut, your hand stops cooperating. German blacksmiths in Solingen came up with a solution. Curve the blade into an arc. The tip of this knife stays on the board and never moves. The cook just rocks the handle up and down, continuously, without stopping, 3 times faster. That curve wasn't an aesthetic choice. It was the answer to a specific problem. How do you cut 1,000 portions without breaking down before the end of your shift? Restaurants got bigger, and the knife bent to match the workload. Santoku. Late 40s. Japan has just lost the war. American occupation changes everything, including food. Meat, which Japanese people had barely eaten for over 1,000 years because of religious bans, suddenly appears on tables en masse. New problem. Japanese knives are built for fish and vegetables, not meat. And the European chef's knife, with its wide curve, is designed for a rocking motion, a technique that simply didn't exist in Japanese cooking. Japanese cooks cut differently, straight down, no rocking. Relearning an entirely different knife technique just to handle new food made no sense. Blacksmiths took the Western profile and rebuilt it for themselves. Removed the curve, dropped the tip, made the blade shorter and lighter. One knife that cuts meat, fish, and vegetables, with a straight downward stroke, no rocking, in the Japanese technique. Santoku translates literally 3 skills: meat, fish, vegetables. Defeat in war brought new food. New food demanded a knife nobody had made before.
Bread knife. 1928. Factories start mass-producing bread with a hard crust and a soft, airy crumb. Millions of loaves shipped to homes across the country every week. One problem. The crust is hard, the crumb is like a cloud. A regular knife presses down from above. The crust won't give, the crumb collapses into mush. The bread doesn't cut, it breaks. The answer came from geometry. A long blade with large serrations doesn't press, it saws. The teeth pierce the crust at individual points without crushing the structure inside. Serrated knives existed before, but factory bread made them mandatory in every home. Factories solved the problem of feeding millions and created a new one for every kitchen. Bread arrived with a crust no regular knife could handle. The serrated knife became the answer.
Paring knife. This is the only knife you use in the air. One hand holds the fruit, the other peels the skin, following its shape. A chef's knife is too long for this. A large blade gives you no control over a small, rounded fruit, takes off too much, and slips. 19th century. The volume of tropical fruit trade explodes. Oranges, lemons, mangoes sail by the thousands of tons across the ocean to Europe and America. Expensive. Fragile. Every gram counts. One clumsy cut, and the expensive import ends up in the trash. What was needed was a tool that could follow the curves of the fruit exactly. The blade was shortened to 3 to 4 inches. A short knife is easier to guide along a curved surface than a long one. Fruit got expensive. Waste became unacceptable. The knife got smaller.
Cleaver. This is the most intimidating knife in the kitchen, and the most honest one. Before refrigerators existed, you couldn't freeze a carcass for tomorrow. It had to be broken down within hours, completely. Bones, joints, cartilage. A thin blade would simply snap against that framework. The solution wasn't sharpness, it was mass. A wide rectangular blade isn't a knife in the traditional sense, it's a controlled axe. Weight drops from above, inertia splits the bone. 1 strike instead of 10. The broken bones weren't thrown away, they went into the pot. The goal was to extract maximum calories from the carcass. Throwing away a bone meant throwing away calories that were already in short supply. In an era without refrigeration, that was an unaffordable luxury. The cleaver wasn't born out of love for chopping. It was born out of the impossibility of throwing anything away.
Boning knife.
Meat doesn't sit flat against the bone. It wraps around joints, tucks under ribs, clings to cartilage. A wide blade doesn't cut here, it tears. It leaves flesh on the skeleton. And in the meat trade, that's direct losses.
18th and 19th centuries, butchering becomes an assembly line. Thousands of carcasses a day, wholesale supply chains. Every gram left on the bone is subtracted from profit. The answer was in geometry. A narrow blade, a fine tip, a controlled flex. The knife doesn't chop, it glides along the bone, curves around joints, follows the anatomy instead of fighting it. The meat industry counted every gram. The knife got narrower so none of them would be lost.
Nakiri, Japan, 7th century, 1300 years before the war that brought meat back. Buddhism becomes the state religion. Imperial edicts ban the consumption of meat. Violation is punishable by exile. The ban lasts for centuries. Meat disappears from the table almost entirely. Vegetables become the foundation of the diet. But a standard knife with a curved blade is built for a rocking motion. It cuts meat, not vegetables. Cabbage or carrots, it presses rather than cuts. The vegetable gets crushed, moisture escapes, the cut comes out ragged. Blacksmiths changed the geometry. A straight blade strikes directly downward. No rocking, no pressure. A clean, vertical stroke. Cabbage, carrots, greens, everything cuts in one motion without crushing. Nakiri translates as knife for vegetable. The ban on meat lasted more than 1,000 years. In that time, Japanese cooks brought vegetable knife work to a level Europe never reached, because Europe never had 1,000 years of practice without meat. One religious edict removed meat from the table. Blacksmiths straightened the blade and created the finest vegetable knife in the world.
Serrated utility. Mid-20th century, plant breeders developed tomatoes for shipping, not for flavor. Thick skin, dense flesh, engineered to survive a cross-country journey intact. But a smooth knife can't get through that skin. The blade slides across the surface, presses down, and instead of a clean slice, you get mush with juice across the whole board. The problem is in the skin. It's firm and smooth. A straight edge can't grip it. It just presses from above, the skin bursts, and the flesh collapses. Fine serrations work differently. They don't press, they grip and saw. Each tooth bites into the surface, distributes pressure across multiple points, opens the skin without crushing what's inside. The same principle works on peaches, plums, figs, anywhere the outside is firm and the inside is delicate. The industrial tomato got tougher. The knife grew teeth to cut through it cleanly.
1876. The Japanese government issues the Hitore Edict. Samurai are forbidden from carrying swords anywhere in public without exception. For the blacksmiths, it was a death sentence. They had been forging blades for centuries. It was the only craft they knew. Orders vanished in a single day. But the workshops didn't close. They took the same techniques, layered steel, single bevel edge, the balance between hardness and flexibility, and applied them to a different object. Not a weapon, a kitchen knife. The Japanese knives considered the gold standard today, Gyuto, Yanagiba, Nakiri, are the direct descendants of the samurai sword. Now metaphorically, literally, the same hammers, the same forges, the same hands. One political edict banned swords, and the blacksmiths turned the ban into a legacy.